Okay, so today we have our uh, session number 12, and today we start the second canto. The second canto is the shortest of the 12 cantos, but it has a lot of interesting information about the structure and the process of creation of the material universes, and also a little bit about the history of the universe, right? So all these kind of technical details about the creation, they start being explained in more detail here in the second canto. So, so everything starts here, right? First chapter. Today, the whole session we will be studying just the first chapter of the second canto, because there is a lot here on this chapter. So, okay, let me just put here. Oh, okay. So the question is that after everything starts with again Maharaj Parikshit and Sukadeva Goswami, right? So after Maharaj Parikshit, he presented his questions before Sukadeva Goswami. Then the great sage, right, Sukadeva Goswami, he started to reply. So in the first canto, uh, Sutta Goswami, he answers the questions of Saunaka right? So Saunaka asks several questions in the beginning of the first canto and then a few more later. And the whole first canto is Sutta Goswami answering these questions. And now on the second canto, we have Sukadeva Goswami directly answering the questions of Maharaja Parikshit. And we can imagine that although here Sukadeva Goswami is the one speaking, we can imagine that Sutta Goswami is repeating everything word by word to the sages in Naimisharanya. So in the first canto, Vyasadeva started now his recitation with the words Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, offering his respects to the Supreme Lord. And now on the second canto, Sukadeva Goswami, he starts his answers to Maharaj Parikshit by uttering the same words, right? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And the word Bhagavan can sometimes be used in relation to an ordinary, like powerful person. But Vyasadeva, he makes clear who is being addressed by Vasudevaya, Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. So it's clear that Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya speaks about Krishna. So the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is called the cosmic manifestation, because there are a lot of explanations about the structure of the universe, the process of creation, and these topics will be explained in more detail in the following cantos. So there is a list here you can see on the screen that of the 10 subjects of the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So the first is Sarga, or the primary creation. That's the creation that is done by Lord Mahavishnu. He creates the universe as like a project, a blueprint, or as an idea. Then we have Visarga, the secondary creation, that is done by Lord Brahma, right? When he finally creates the universe. Then we have Vritti, maintenance of the universe, right? Because it's not just begetting the child. You need to educate the child and take care of the child, right? So this is Vritti. And then we have Raksha, that is the sustenance of all living beings. This is considered a separate topic, the maintenance of the universe and the maintenance of the living beings. Then we have 5, Antarani. And these are the reigns of the Manus, right? The Manus are very important people. They take care of the universal affairs. They're like kings of the whole universe. And then we have Vansa. These are the dynasties of different great kings. There is a gigantic genealogical table that is narrated in the Srimad Bhagavatam that starts with Lord Brahma, billions of years ago, and goes all the way to practically recent times. And then we have Vansa Anucharitam, that is the narration of their activities. And then Samsta, annihilation of the universe, right? This happens periodically. There are different types of annihilation. And then we have Hetu, and is the motivation for the living entities to act materially, to perform material activities. And then Apshraya, that is the supreme shelter, right? Descriptions of Krishna dealing with his parts and parcels and how we can obtain the shelter of the Lord. So each canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam explains certain topics in more detail than others. So, for example, in the second canto, there are more details about the process of creation of the universe. But all the 12 cantos, they contain explanations about all the 10 topics. So all the 10 topics, they are discussed in each canto. It's just that each canto gives like emphasis to a few of the topics. So why is this? Happens like this because each canto, it brings knowledge that is suitable for the level of the understanding of the reader. So because of this, we may notice that the same topic is often repeatedly explained in several cantos of the Bhagavatam, right? But with different details. And also, of course, other topics are introduced on each canto, right? So the idea is that each canto or understanding or comprehension, it becomes deeper and deeper and deeper. And then the next canto may explain something that was explained in the previous canto again, but now with more detail, because now we understand more, and so on, so forth. So of course, this may sound, confusing for, modern readers, because we expect a book that, is going to explain everything connected with one topic before moving to the next topic, right? But this is a scientific system that, for conveying transcendental knowledge, right? It's not a normal book. That's why. So the first chapter in the second canto that we will study today, actually, I think is okay. That is already a new slide here. Sometimes I start explaining and I forget to change the slides. So the first chapter in the second canto, that's what we are studying today, is called the first step in God realization, because it includes an explanation of the process of meditation in the universal form, which is a process recommended for neophytes and also transcendentalists coming from impersonalism, like people who may have difficulties in meditating on the personal transcendental form of the Lord. And this meditation on the universal form, it offers a way to adjust their consciousness to the idea that the Lord has a form. Like, for example, one impersonalist, he thinks, oh, the God doesn't have a form. And it's very difficult for him to understand that, yes, God has a form. So the first step in this case is that he can start meditating in the universal form, God as the universe. And because that's something that he can see. He can see the mountains, he can see the rivers, the sky, the sun. So he can start meditating as these things he can see as forming this universal form of the Lord. So it's a way to understand that the Lord has a form. So it's a start. So at the end of the first canto, Parikshit Maharaja, he asked about the way of perfection for all persons, right? And especially for the ones who are about to die, right? What should a person hear, chant, remember, and worship in this situation? And also, what he should not do, right? So two questions, positive and negative, right? What he should do and what he should not do. So the answer to this question is the process of pure devotional service to the Lord, which was already hinted in the first canto, of course, but is explained in more details here. So Sukadeva Goswami, he starts his answer by revealing that the answer to this question, right, what a person should do and what he should not do, is actually the prime subject matter for hearing. And this is a process approved by all, right? And here I'm going to read from first chapter, verses 2 to 5. Quote, Sukadeva Goswami speaks. So those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of the ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society, O Emperor. The lifetime of such an envious householder is passed at night, either in sleeping or sex indulgence, and in the daytime, either in making money or maintaining their family members. Persons devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problems of life, being too attached to the fallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. Jai. And now we have an interesting explanation here. So the second verse, like 212, it mentions the word Griha Medinam. So Griha means house. Simple as that. Griha is house. So every married couple is supposed to have a house, right? Where they can raise their children, raise their family. But so every married couple is they are householders. They have a house. But there are two types of householders. So one type is a grihasta. A grihasta is attentive to his spiritual practice and duties, and he conducts, his married life in a way that is not contradictory to his spiritual development. And that's what is called grihasta ashrama. That's a position where one can practice spiritual life living together with his family, right? So this verse, however, sounds quite heavy because actually doesn't speak about this type of householders. It speaks about another type, that is the Grihamedi. And the Grihamedi is an ordinary materialist who just tries to improve his material position, just to make more money, enjoy life, without any clear spiritual vision. Prabhupada explains this later on 3:22:11. He says that, quote, that the difference between Grihamedi and Grihasta is that Grihasta is also an ashrama, or spiritual order. But if one simply satisfies his senses as a householder, then he is a Grihamedi. For a Grihamedi, to accept a wife means to satisfy the senses. But for a Grihasta, a qualified wife is an assistant in every respect for advancement in spiritual activities. So here Prabhupada makes this point that Grihamedi life is just about, material satisfaction, sense gratification, while the life of the Grihasta is about spiritual advancement, right? So the focus of these two types of family life is completely different. Only superficially they may look the same, right? Okay, they both have houses, they both have children, so it may look the same thing superficially, but actually it's the opposite. So Grihamedis, they are just concerned about the needs of the body and mind, right? They live just to try to satisfy their material ambitions, and because of this, they have no time or interest in hearing about self-realization. And the problem for them is that death does not wait for anyone, right? We have a finite time to live in this world, and this time is properly utilized if we use it to attain the eternal life, to attain spiritual perfection, right? Through the process of Krishna consciousness, right? Chanting the holy names, hearing about Krishna, worshiping, serving, studying, and so on. So a devotee practices all of this during his life, and thus, at the moment of death, he's able to pass the test, right? So Prabhupada mentions this point also in his purport that, quote, factually, the human life is meant for making an ultimate solution to birth, death, old age, and disease. But the Grihamedis, being illusioned by the material nature, forget everything about self-realization. The ultimate solution to the problems of life is to go back home, back to Godhead. And thus, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 8:16, the miseries of material existence, birth, death, old age, and disease are removed, right? So see, so the point here in this verse is to understand this difference between the Grihasta and the Grihamedi. Because there are many passages because there are passages of the Srimad Bhagavatam that speaks about Grihastas and passages that speak about Grihamedis. Usually the heavy passages speak about Grihamedis. And then Grihamedis, they are thoroughly condemned on the Srimad Bhagavatam. But it's important to understand the difference between the two. So materialists, on the other hand, they try to just prolong their existence in this material world by surrounding themselves with many fallible soldiers, like bodily strengths, money, relatives, doctors, and so on, right? And in this way, a materialist tries to find a situation where he feels, completely safe and comfortable in this material world. And he makes many arrangements in this direction, right, to extend and protect his life. But unfortunately, this can't save him at the time of death, right? And in this way, the materialist eventually he dies and takes with him on to his next body only the reactions to his pious and sinful activities, right? The money, the relatives, and so on, they all stay behind. And it's important to note that and now again, just repeating these points, that most passages of the scriptures that criticize family life, they specifically condemn this type of materialistic family life and not family life in Krishna consciousness. So the Grihastha Ashrama is actually recommended in the scriptures as a viable path of self-realization, and this is especially true in Krishna consciousness. Bhaktivinoda Thakur even recommended Grihastha Ashrama as the safest path for the age we live. So one who has talent for being a renounced person, of course, he can be renounced. But for most people, family life works better. It's safer. So one can be a transcendentalist both as a renounced person or as a married man or woman, but the main point is to remain stronger in your spiritual practice and to not lose the track of the goal of life, right? And then we go now from Grihamedi life to the highest perfection, right? We have a great leap now. So, amongst transcendentalists, some they cultivate knowledge, right? Some practice mystic yoga, others they try to practice their duties inside the Varnashrama system, and so on. However, the perfection for all these paths is to remember the Lord at the time of death. So actually, our whole lives they are just a preparation for this test that we will all have to pass, right, one day. And Prabhupada mentions this on 216, quote, the verse says, the highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirits, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life, right, Jai? So, the ultimate perfection of life is the stage of Narayana Smriti. And this means the stage when we can constantly remember the Lord, right? That's the ultimate goal, to always remember Krishna, never forget him. And this stage, it can be achieved only by association with devotees. Right? There are many instances of great personalities who became devotees and achieved, this spiritual perfection after graduating the paths of karma, jnana, or yoga. For example, the four Kumaras, right? The nine Yogendras. So we can see that there are many examples of very advanced transcendentalists that they come from karma, jnana, or yoga to the process of bhakti. But there are no instances at all of a pure devotee going back to one of these processes. Neophytes, they may sometimes fall down, of course, but pure devotees, they never go back. So Sukadeva Goswami, for example, he was perfectly situated in the impersonal platform, right? But nonetheless, he became attracted to the process of devotional service when he heard Srimad Bhagavatam, and he never went back, right? So this proves that the platform of devotional service is the highest stage, right, of all. And this is, oops, let me just, and this is confirmed in the next verses. So we will see here, I will read here, quote, O King Parikshit, mainly the topmost transcendentalists who are above the regulative principles and restrictions take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord, right? The highest ones. At the end of the Dwapara Yuga, I studied this great supplement of Vedic literature named Srimad Bhagavatam, which is equal to all the Vedas from my father, Srila Dwapayana Vyasa. O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence, yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described in enlightened verses. So you see, Sukadeva Goswami, he personally says that I was already in transcendence. I was already in Brahman platform, in a pure platform, beyond the three modes, beyond material contamination. But I was attracted by the pastimes of the Lord. So you see, that's the next stage, that's higher. And he continues, that very Srimad Bhagavatam I shall recite before you, because you are the most sincere devotee of Lord Krishna. One who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation. Right? And here we continue here. So Sukadeva Goswami, he heard the Srimad Bhagavatam from his father before the battle of Kurukshetra, right? And this was, the battle of Kurukshetra was the chronological start of Kali Yuga. And then after that, he was wandering as an Avaduta until he finally met Maharaj Parikshit, right, to fulfill his mission of revealing the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in terms of years, he looked like, in terms of chronological age, he was older than Maharaj Parikshit, right? He was born before, but still he looked like, when he met Parikshit Maharaj, he looked like a 16-year-old boy. He had extremely beautiful bodily features. So in his purports, Prabhupada emphasizes that the Bhagavatam should be studied sequentially, right? One canto after the other. So one should start from the first cantos, like first canto, second canto, and so on, and then gradually study the whole scripture from there. Instead of, reading, one piece from here, one piece from there, go to the 11th canto, then go back to the 5th, then go to the 10th, then go back to the 1st, then 12th, and so on. No, you should read the Bhagavatam sequentially, like starting from the beginning. So the Bhagavatam is a scripture carefully composed to gradually elevate our consciousness. So we may be able to understand Krishna's pastimes in the 10th canto and become fixed in meditation on him, right? That it was already defined as the ultimate goal of life. And then another topic, living for just a moment in full consciousness. So in text 11, right, we're still here in the first chapter. So in text 11 of the first chapter, Sukadeva Goswami, he reveals the supreme process of self-realization, taking shelter of the sound representation of the Lord, right? That's the conclusion here. Following the instructions of spiritual authorities, right? Accept a spiritual master and under his guidance, adopt this process of chanting the holy names. So this is a process recommended for everyone, including those who desire material enjoyment, those who are free from all desires, and also the ones who are already self-realized and self-satisfied, for everyone, right? Because all other processes of self-realization, they are ineffective in your age, right? Only the process of remembering the Lord constantly through his sound representation, through the holy names, can save us from the cycle of birth and death in Kali Yuga, can bring us back to Godhead. So, so this can be done by directly chanting the holy names or by reciting and hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, as we see the example of Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, right? They were just speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam for 7 days, and as a result, both became liberated, right? So Parikshit, he had asked, what is the duty of one who is about to die, right? And here in these verses, Sukadeva Goswami, he gives the answer. And this, of course, will be expanded throughout the whole Bhagavatam. But here he gives the, concise version of the answer. So we may think that we have a very long time, very long life already ahead, right? Oh, I'm just 20, 30, 40 years old. I have so long to live, right? But in reality, we are all people who are about to die because we can't be sure about how long we will live. Right? Prabhupada makes the point that because of the curse of the Brahmana, Parikshit, he could be sure that he was going to live for 7 days, because the curse is that after 7 days you will die, means for 7 days he was going to live. He had this certainty, right? But we don't have this certainty. We can die at any moment. We don't know if we have 7 days. Maybe we don't. So therefore, we should have the same sense of urgency that of Maharaj Parikshit in hearing about Krishna, right? So these are verses 11 and 12. I will read, quote, O king, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is a doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. What is the value of a prolonged life which is wasted, inexperienced by years in this world? Better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest. Right? So we see, Sukadeva Goswami, he makes this point to encourage Maharaj Parikshit, because he has only 7 days to live, right? And we may have even less, so this encourages us also. Right? So Sukadeva Goswami, he explains that there is no point in living a very long life that doesn't lead to self-realization, because certain species in our planets, they live for thousands of years, right? For example, certain types of trees. There are trees that can live for 1, 2, 3, 1,000 years. But what is the point of having a very long life as a tree, right? There is no point, right? You are just standing there for 3,000 years. That's not good at all. So similarly, most people, they may have longer lives than Parikshit Maharaj. But again, even if it's a human life, what is the point of having a long human life in ignorance of our eternal nature as souls, right? Also doesn't help. So it's better to live for just a moment, but in full Krishna consciousness, because that's something that really can help us, right? So since Parikshit Maharaj, he had already decided to dedicate his last days, the last days of his life, to hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, and situated himself in Krishna consciousness, then now there was nothing to lament, right? He was in an excellent situation. So, so then the next question is, won't 7 days, just 7 days, be sufficient for him to attain perfection? Will not be better to have a longer life, no, at least 1 year or 2? So to put things into perspective, Sukadeva Goswami, he mentions the story of Maharaja Katwanga. So Maharaja Katwanga, he was able to attain perfection in just a muhurta. And this is much less time than Maharaj Parikshit had. A muhurta equals 48 minutes, but it's generally translated as a moment, right? Why? Because it's not a very long time. Now, if we don't know, if we don't have a clear idea of what we want to do, we can very easily waste, a muhurta, right? 48 minutes, very easily. Like we just sit and, look to the sky or, see something on the phone. When we see 48 minutes passed, right? That's why it's translated as a moment, because like that, if we are not attentive. But of course, that was not the case with Maharaja Katwanga, right? So the saintly king Katwanga, now I'm reading the verse. So this is 2:113, quote, the saintly king Katwanga, after being informed that the duration of his life would be only a moment more, only a muhurta more, he at once freed himself from all material activities and took shelter of the supreme safety, the personality of Godhead. So the story is that Maharaja Katwanga, he was invited by the demigods to the celestial planets to help them to fight the Asuras, right? And after fighting many battles, the demigods, they became satisfied with him and offered him a benediction. But instead of asking for some material blessing, Katwanga, he inquired about his remaining duration of life. And this showed how his priority was not to just, enjoy materially, but to prepare himself to the next life, right? That's what he was concerned about. And after he was informed by the demigods that he had only one muhurta left, only one moment left, he immediately returned to art and used this time to practice self-realization and return home back to Godhead. So you see, he was able to attain perfection in just one muhurta, just 48 minutes, one moment, right? And then the next question is, why did he return to art instead of simply, practicing where he was? Why he took the trouble of traveling, right? Why not to just sit there on the celestial planets and practice there? So the point is that it's very easy to become distracted by all the opportunities for sense gratification that exists in the celestial planets, right? So although there are, many sages and devotees in the celestial planets, it's actually not a very good place for self-realization. And then we have the lower planets, and the lower planets, they are also not a very good place because there, people are very disturbed, so much suffering, so much anxiety, so much fear, bad association. So it's also not a good place. So art is considered the ideal place for self-realization because here we have this balanced environment, right? We don't have these extremes of joy or distress. Everything is kind of moderate here, right? So that's considered the best place, right? So interesting, right? And then theoretically, right, one can go back to Godhead from any position in the material world, right? Even if one is not a human being, there is possibility. For example, when Lord Chaitanya, he entered the forest of Jarikanda, all the animals, they joined him in the chanting of the holy names, and they were liberated. They went back to Godhead. Lord Chaitanya also liberated several trees by embracing them, right? Also Gajendra, who was a celestial elephant, he was able to achieve liberation by remembering, like in a moment of danger, prayers that he had learned in his previous life as a human being, right? In this way, he recited these prayers even as an elephant, surrendered to the Lord, and went back to Godhead. Also, Bali Maharaja, he became a pure devotee, although he was born in the lower planets, right? So there are many great devotees in the celestial planets, also in the lower planets. Prahlada Maharaja was also from the lower planets. So the point is just that practicing devotional service in the celestial planets is harder because of all the possibilities of material enjoyment that are available there. So arts, especially during the time that we are now, during the time of the Sankirtan movement, is the most favorable place. So, we are in the right place, right place, right time. And we can use this opportunity to go back to Godhead. So examples of Maharaja Katwanga and Maharaj Parikshit, they set the gold standard for one who is interested in achieving perfection at the time of death, right? They give the perfect example. So instead of being afraid of death, we should see death as an opportunity to regain our eternal position as servants of Krishna, right? If someone would come to us and say, "Oh, tomorrow you are going to go back to Godhead," no one would fear death. Oh, yes, it's coming, finally, right? So if we practice during our lifetimes, it's going to be like that. When that comes, it's just going to be okay. Tomorrow I'm going back to Godhead. It's going to be a source of happiness, actually. There was one Mataji who was leaving her body here in Mayapur, and everybody was coming to her and oh, no, praying for her, and she was laughing. Why are you praying for me? You should pray for yourself. I'm going back home. So during our lifetime, we are distracted, by so many tasks, so many duties. But when it comes to the last stage of life, and we realize that our days are numbered, we should become fully determined, right, to cross the material ocean, to go back to Godhead. And now we go to the first step of God realization that is going to be described, this meditation in the universal form. So from verse 16 to 21, Sukadeva Goswami, he describes the process of mystic yoga or Astanga yoga. And this is a process for becoming purified of material contamination and becoming situated in the platform of devotional service to the Lord. And of course, Astanga yoga is a process of self-realization that has been practiced since the beginning of Satya Yuga, right? And many elevated personalities, who were capable of controlling their senses, they were practicing this. So, for example, in the first canto, we had the example of Dhritarashtra. He attained liberation by this process of Astanga Yoga. And of course, throughout the Bhagavatam, there are many other examples that are given. So the process of Astanga Yoga, right, interesting point, the process of Astanga Yoga is also based on the chanting of the holy names. And the holy names, they are chanted in the form of the sacred syllable Om, right? That's the holy name in the process of Astanga Yoga. And actually, it has the same goal as the process of congregational chanting that we practice, which is to become completely absorbed in meditation of the Lord, right? So it's just that, Astanga Yoga is a process that is very difficult to practice, especially in the age we are, right? But great personalities like Parikshit Maharaja, they could practice it without difficulty, right? We see that even Dhritarashtra was able to do that. So here are the steps that are described by Sukadeva Goswami, right? So 1A, one should go to an isolated place and practice the rules and regulations of the yoga system, right? Bathing regularly, sitting in a sanctified place. Then B, one should vibrate the Omkara, Aum, right? And the sacred syllable, control the breathing process, control the mind, and so on. Then C, as the mind becomes spiritualized, the mind should withdraw it from sense activities and control the senses using the intelligence. Krishna speaks about this on the Bhagavad Gita also. And then D, after focusing the mind, right, one can meditate on Paramatma inside the heart, visualizing one limb of his transcendental body at a time, right? But at the same time, without becoming, deviated from the conception of the whole body, right? You shouldn't start thinking that, oh, Paramatma is a leg. No, Paramatma has complete form, but you meditate on the leg, on the belt, on the chest, and so on. And this meditation, it should be completely focused on the Lord, right? Without other thoughts, crossing the mind. And then E, by this system of remembering and focusing one's mind on the personal form of the Lord, one can soon attain devotional service to the Lord under his personal shelter, right? So in this short description, Sukadeva Goswami, he describes in a nutshell, the goal of the process, that is to meditate on the personal form of the Lord. So it's very difficult for us to practice this process, of course, but we can achieve similar benefits by meditating in the form of the Diti, right? Prabhupada explains that for us, this is a much more effective process. Instead of trying to meditate on Paramatma, we just go to the temple and look to the Diti. And we stay there for hours looking to the Diti. That's more effective than to trying to do Astanga Yoga for us. So Prabhupada gives here the verse here, 2:119, quote, the worshipable, Prabhupada mentions here in his purport to 2:119, he says that the worshipable deity in the temple of Vishnu is identical with Lord Vishnu by the inconceivable potency of the Lord. Therefore, a neophyte's concentration or meditation upon the limbs of Vishnu in the temple, as contemplated in the revealed scriptures, is an easy opportunity for meditation for persons who are unable to sit down tight at one place and then concentrate upon pranava, Omkara, or the limbs of the body of Vishnu, as recommended herein by Sukadeva Goswami, the great authority. The common man can benefit more by meditating on the form of Vishnu in the temple than on the Omkara, the spiritual combination of A, as explained before, right? So, unquote. So, see, Prabhupada makes this point. So, in verse 22, Parikshit, he inquires further. He says, O Brahmana, please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be applied and how the conception can be fixed so that the dirty things in a person's mind can be removed. And with this, in answering this question, Sukadeva Goswami, he starts a more elaborate explanation of the process, right? Describing the meditation on the Virat Rupa, or the universal form. And then he proceeds, this will be next meeting, that second chapter, to describe meditation on Paramatma, right? So there are these two stages, meditation on the universal form and meditation on Paramatma. But before, let's understand a little bit more about the process of Astanga Yoga, because that's what is being described here, right? Also, sixth chapter of Bhagavad Gita also speaks about that, Astanga Yoga. So it's interesting to understand what Astanga Yoga is, because we say, oh, Astanga Yoga, okay, and what it is, we just know the name, right? So Astanga Yoga, or the eightfold yoga system, right? Asta means eight and Anga means limb. So Astanga Yoga is the process that has 8 limbs. So Astanga Yoga consists of 8 levels of practice that are Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Jhana, and Samadhi. You don't need to try to memorize now because we will see this more thoroughly. So this is the process mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita and also in other scriptures, which was practiced by yogis and transcendentalists throughout the ages, like since the beginning of the universe. So all the modern processes of yoga, they are derived from this Astanga Yoga, this eightfold system. But of course, in most cases, important parts of the process of the are lost, discarded, modified, and then become something else, right? So the Astanga Yoga process starts with Yama and Niyama, right? Yama means to do, Niyama means not to do. So these are the rules and regulations, prescriptions and prohibitions that one is supposed to follow as part of his yogic practice. So Yama means items that are favorable to the spiritual practice and therefore should be practiced. These are the do's. And niyama means what is unfavorable and should be avoided or abandoned, right? These are the don'ts, do and don'ts. So, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions that there is no possibility of one becoming a yogi or Arjuna if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much, or does not sleep enough, right? That's Bhagavad Gita 6:16. And this is an example of yama niyama, right? Just to give one example. So similarly, other prescriptions they include to wake up early in the morning, right? Not going to sleep late, follow a vegetarian diet, being non-violent, maintaining a good standard of cleanness, sense control, etc. Right? So most of the rules and prohibitions of yama and niyama are useful for all, spiritual seekers, not only to Astanga yogis, right? These are like general rules that anyone can follow. Then the third component is asana. And asana is what we usually know by yoga nowadays. Now, these are the bodily exercises, the sitting postures, and so on. So the asanas, they help to a person to ascend from a very gross material platform to a more subtle platform, right? Calming the mind, helping to develop concentration. And these are, of course, prerequisites for the most advanced stages of Astanga Yoga. So the asanas, they are thus a preparation, right? They are just like, a runner may warm up and do some, different routines before starting his training, right? So the asanas, they are just like a warming up to start preparing to meditate. So asana means to use the material body to perform activities that can elevate one's consciousness. So in this sense, there are similarities with the process of karma yoga that is described in the Bhagavad Gita, right? In the case of the Astanga yoga process, the asanas, they also help to prepare the body for standing in the same position for a long time, which is required in the practice of meditation, right? So for devotees, this may be useful to chant japa better, for example, so you can sit and just chant, not be, oh, my leg, my back, everything is in pain. So that would be one application, like for devotees, practically speaking. So more advanced than bodily postures is the process of pranayama that consists on breathing exercise, like inhaling, holding the breath, exhale, and so on. And this is a more subtle form of the process of employing the gross body in actions that help us to elevate our consciousness, right? The pranayama process is rarely explained in the Bhagavad Gita 429. Krishna says that still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance, practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others curtailing the eating process or offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice, right? So, there are different explanations about pranayama. So, just like with the asanas, the process of pranayama is to stop the mind and senses from engaging in materialistic activities, right? So, in both cases, the goal is not to make the body and mind stronger, right? In order to just, work more, manage stress and so on. No, the idea is to advance in spiritual practice, right? That's the idea. The problem with the way most people practice yoga nowadays is exactly that, because of lack of, broader understanding of the process and its goals, right? Most people, they just, practice a little bit of this, a little bit of that. They practice isolated parts of the process with the goal of simply, improving their physical endurance, mental alertness, and so on. And thus they don't really practice anything. They're just like, someone that leaks the external pot of the external side of a pot of honey instead of, opening it and, eating the honey that is inside. It's completely superficial and, doesn't really bring any benefit. So, okay. After pranayama, there is pratyahara, right? That's the next process, which means to control the mind and senses. So in the Bhagavad Gita, the material body is compared with a chariot, right? Where the senses are the horses, The mind and the intelligence, they are the reins and the coachman, and the soul is the passenger, right? So when one is starting this meditational process, the mind will wander everywhere, right? Of course, right? So the mind will start, bringing to our consciousness a series of remembrances, desires, plans, feelings, and so on. And pratyahara means to withdraw the mind and focus it in the practice of yoga, or in other words, to withdraw the senses from matter and engage then in transcendence. Just like the example of a tortoise, right? A tortoise can withdraw his members, his limbs when necessary, right? And then again expand then when desired. So the yogi is compared like this with a turtle. He can withdraw and then expand again his senses as needed. So without mastering the process of pratyahara, it's not possible for one to successfully practice the next level, that is dharana or meditation. So nowadays, of course, many try to meditate, but without pratyahara, it's not possible to successfully do that, to successfully meditate. And this, of course, leads to many concocted process of guided meditation, that just make people meditate on different aspects of material life instead of proper dharana, right? So these modern processes are also not bona fide, right? And this is another example of practice that doesn't lead anywhere. And this stage is also mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, quote, that's 5:27-28 purport. So, quote, one has to drive out the sense objects, such as sound, touch, form, taste, and smell, by the pratyahara process in yoga, and then keep the vision of the eyes between the two eyebrows and concentrate on the tip of the nose with half-closed lids. There is no benefit in closing the eyes altogether, because then there is every chance of falling asleep. Nor there is benefit in opening the eyes completely, because then there is the hazard of being attracted by sense objects. The breathing movement is restrained within the nostrils by neutralizing the up-moving and up and down-moving air within the body. By the practice of such yoga, one is able to gain control over the senses, refrain from outward sense objects, and thus prepare oneself for liberation in the Supreme, right? Unquote. So, okay, so this is the process of Ashtanga Yoga. So for a practitioner of Bhakti Yoga, right, what it means, what we take from this, how this can help us. So for us, Pratyahara means to engage oneself in practical devotional service, right? Do things. And in this way, the mind and senses, they are automatically controlled. And this is also described in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:33-8 purport. Quote, Pratyahara means to wind up the activities of the senses. The level of realization of the Supreme Lord, evidenced by Devahuti, is possible when one is able to withdraw the senses from material activities. When one is engaged in devotional service, there is no scope for his senses to be engaged otherwise, in a different way. In such full Krishna consciousness, one can understand the Supreme Lord as he is, right? So Pratyahara for us means practical devotional service. And then the next stage is dharana, or fixed meditation. All right. And of course, nowadays, many have this idea that, to meditate means to, empty the mind of all thoughts and so on. However, this process, not only it's not recommended, but it's actually not even possible, because thoughts, they always come to the mind. Even the thought that I'm not thinking or anything is already a thought. So, so instead, the Ashtanga Yoga process, it prescribes meditation on the form of the Lord. So that is an object of meditation. So a yogi takes shelter, like ashraya, in a particular form of the Lord, and he fixes his mind on all details of this particular form. And so this fixed meditation is thus also a form of worship, right? The yogi is worshiping the Lord by this meditation. So the object of meditation, the dharana ashaya, can be one, the universal form, the Virat Rupa, or two, the form of Paramatma inside the heart, and can be one or the other according to the yogi's level of advancement, right? And for in your case, right, for a bhakti yogi, the process of dharana is performed through the chanting of the Mahamantra, which provides shelter for the meditation, right? And this chanting of the Mahamantra allow a person to connect with the transcendental platform with much less effort. And so the next stage, right, is jhana. So as the meditation intensifies, like it becomes deeper, a yogi enters the stage of jhana. And although both dharana and jhana, they involve basically the same process of meditation, dharana is the beginning and jhana is the advanced stage, when the yogi master the process and starts to come closer to the final goal. So it's just a deepening. No? No, jhana is a deepening of the stage of dharana. And then finally, after it, there is the stage of samadhi, and this is deep trance. And this is attained when the yogi finally attains perfection in the meditation process, right? So in samadhi, the yogi is capable of fully situated his consciousness in the spiritual platform, right? And at this stage, he attains the level of Brahma Bhuta, and this is Brahman realization or liberation. And this is, of course, the final goal of the process of yoga. So samadhi is also the ultimate goal in the process of bhakti yoga, right? For us. And we also attain samadhi through fixed meditation. The main difference is that in the process of Ashtanga Yoga, one has to execute a very difficult process, while a devotee, he just needs to be absorbed in Krishna's name, form, pastimes, etc. By this absorption, we attain the samadhi. That's just like great yogis. And the stage of Brahma Bhuta is described in the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 1854. So Krishna says, one who is thus transcendentally situated at once, like immediately, realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me, right? So, unquote. So this is the goal of the process of Ashtanga Yoga, right? Actually, this is the goal of all processes of yoga, right? The very word yoga means to connect, right? Or in other words, bring one's consciousness from matter to spirit, right? Connecting with the Lord, connecting with the divine. And this connection is firmly established in this stage of Brahma Bhuta. Brahma Bhuta means when one becomes transcendental. He's not in this material world anymore. So the stage of Brahma Bhuta also marks the stage where one can start to practice a personal relationship with the Lord in one of the 5 rasas, right, that are cultivated in the spiritual planets. So some souls, they will prefer the stage of neutrality, right? Others will prefer to serve the Lord. Others may prefer to cultivate a personal relationship in equal level, right? Friendship. Others, they may prefer a paternal relationship, and others a conjugal relationship, right? And any of these rasas or relationships, they are possible for sincere devotees. But again, they start from the stage of Brahma Bhuta, right? Where one becomes free from material entanglement and he becomes situated in a pure transcendental platform. So there is no possibility at all of cultivating a personal relationship with Krishna while one is still under the influence of the material modes of passion and ignorance, right? So that's an interesting point to understand, because when one starts putting too much emphasis in personal relationship with Krishna before first attaining Brahmabhuta, before first becoming free of the material modes, then it just becomes Sahajiya, right? He's speaking about Krishna and the gopis and smoking at the same time, right? It doesn't work, right? So meditation on the universal form. And now we go here to the main point here in this chapter. So, one who has material desires or is in a gross level of consciousness, he is recommended here to meditate in the universal form, right? So, of course, not for us because we are already in a higher process, but this process is given here. So, so this is 2:123. Quote, Sukadeva Goswami answered, one should control the sitting posture, regulate the breathing process by the yogic pranayama, and thus control the mind and the senses with intelligence. Now, the mind and senses, and with intelligence, apply the mind to the gross potencies of the Lord, called the Virat Rupa, right? Unquote. So, in this process, one meditates on the different components of the universal creation, as well as different planetary systems, different demigods, and so on, as being different parts of this universal body of the Lord, right? So Sukadeva Goswami, he describes that the universal form is composed of the phenomenal material world as a whole, right? Including past, present, and future, right? So the universal form means everything that exists in the universe. So then he describes, for example, that the Patala planetary systems, like the lowest planetary system, constitute the bottoms of the feet, and the heels and toes are the Rasatala planets. The ankles are the Mahatala planets, and his shanks constitute the Talatala planets. The knees are the planetary system of Sutala, and the two tides are the Vitala and Atala planetary systems. The hips are Mahitala, and outer space is the depression of his navel. Visible planets, such as the sun and the moon, are situated on his chest. His neck is the Mahar planet. His mouth is the Janus planet. And his forehead is the Tapas planetary system. The topmost planetary system, known as Satyaloka, is the head. So, and then he continues that the arms are the demigods headed by Indra, right? The 10 directional sides are his ears. The physical sound is his sense of hearing. His nostrils are the two Asvini Kumaras. Also, very interesting comparisons are made. Material fragrance is his sense of smell, and his mouth is a blazing fire. The sphere of the outer space constitutes his eye pits, and the eyeball is the sun as the power of seeing. It's two things. His eyelids are both the day and night, and the movement of his eyebrows. And in the movements of his eyebrows, Brahma and similar supreme personalities reside. His palate is the director of water, Varuna, and the juice or essence of everything is his tongue, right? The Vedic hymns are the cerebral passage, and his jaws of teeth are Yamaraj, who punishes the sinners. The art of affection is his set of teeth, and the most alluring, illusory material energy is his smile, right? And then there is more. Modesty is the upper portion of his lips. Hankering is his chin. Religion is his breast. And irreligion is his back. Lord Brahma, who generates all living beings in the material world, is his genitals. Well, because he produces everything, everyone. Everyone comes from there, from Brahma. The ocean is his waist. and the hills and mountains are the stacks of his bones. The rivers are his veins, the trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air in is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature. The clouds which carry water are the hairs on his head. The terminations of days and nights are his dress, and the supreme cause of creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon, the reservoir of all changes. And then there is more. We're almost there. There is a little more about the universal form. So the principle of matter, Mahatattva, is his consciousness, and Lord Rudra is his ego. The horse, mule, camel, and elephant are his nails, and wild animals and all quadrupeds are situated in his belt zone. Varieties of birds are indications of his artistic sense. Manu, the father of mankind, is the emblem of his intelligence, and humanity is his residence. The celestial species of human beings, like the Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and angels, represent his musical rhythm, and the demoniac soldiers are representations of his wonderful prowess. His face is the Brahmanas, his arms are the Kshatras, his tights are the Vaishyas, and the Shudras are under the protection of his feet. All the worshipable demigods are also overtaken by him, right? So, yeah, so it's interesting, right? This is a very powerful form, right? To see everyone is included there, right? Or is submitted to him. So, okay, so we have this description here, very detailed description that is given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So what we do with it, right? That's the question. So to sum, this description of the universal form may sound like a kind of pantheism, like of seeing the universe and nature as identical to God, like in an impersonal conception. Many may get this idea, but it's actually more evolved than this. So the meditation on the universal form is a kind of purified pantheism. Prabhupada makes this point that gradually leads to an understanding of the personal form of the Lord. So it's not just like pantheism, is a type of purified pantheism that leads us to something better. So Prabhupada explains this point on his purpose of verse 20. He says that, quote, pantheism in its higher status does not permit the student to form an impersonal conception of the absolute truth, but it extends the conception of the absolute truth into the field of so-called material energy. Everything created by the material energy can be dovetailed, right, connected with the absolute in an attitude of service, which is an essential part of the living energy. The pure devotee of the Lord knows the art of converting everything into his spiritual existence by his service attitude, and only in that devotional way can the theory of pantheism be perfected. Okay, next slide here. So this universal form is essentially an imaginary form, right? Where different levels of planetary systems and different personalities and elements of the cosmic creation, they are taking as different parts and limbs of this form. So in one sense, it's real because the universe is the energy of the Lord. But in the other sense, it's imaginary because the Lord doesn't have a material form, right? So we just imagine that the universe in itself form a material form for the Lord, but the Lord doesn't have a material form. So in one sense, it's imaginary. So to meditate in this universal form of the Lord is thus an indirect form of meditation but it can help yogis that are, too much absorbed in material consciousness and they can't conceive anything beyond matter, right? So, okay, then you meditate on the universal form. So such yogis, they can't conceive the existence and they can't understand that the Lord has a form. So in this way, the meditation in this universal form is the only feasible process for them. And we see that Krishna also mentions this in the Bhagavad Gita when he says that I'm the taste of the water, I'm the light of the sun. This is the same process of meditation that is described here. So you can remember Krishna when you see these different things. So a yogi who is already free from material desire, right, who is situated in a more advanced stage, he can skip this meditation on the universal form and go straight to meditation in the super soul, right, the form of the Lord situated in one's heart. And in this way, he can fix his mind, in all the details of the transcendental form of the Lord, right? And then, like, who is paying attention, right? One who is paying attention, who is awakened, he may ask, how is this universal form that is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, how it relates to the universal form that is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, that Arjuna saw in the Bhagavad Gita? Is the same thing? Is something different? No, what is it? So, does the universal form, as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, really exist? And the answer is yes and no, right? It's Achincha Beda Beda Tat, right? It's yes and no simultaneously. It exists in the sense that the universe exists. And of course, everything in the universe is related to Krishna because it's part of his energy. But on the other hand, the universal form that is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam is imaginary because, again, Krishna doesn't have a material form. Simple as that, right? So the form the yogis meditate is more or less imaginary, right? It's just conceived in their minds, is a fruit of their imagination. But it is conceived to foment, right? To give impetus to their spiritual understanding. On the other hand, the universal form that was observed by Arjuna and by other personalities on the Bhagavad Gita is a form that Arjuna could observe with his own eyes. It's not just some meditation. He really saw it, right? He experienced it. So when Arjuna asked Krishna to see his universal form, Krishna answered that you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore, I give you divine eyes. Behold my mystic opulence, right? So now you see, Arjuna. You wanted to see? Okay, now enjoy, right? So these transcendental eyes that were given by Krishna to Arjuna, they allowed him to see from the seat of his chariot everything that exists in the universe, as well as past, present, and future. He could see everything from one point. So the many different forms that Arjuna saw, they were the forms of the different demigods, demons, and powerful beings. He describes that some are beautiful, some are terrifying, because some are demigods, some are demons. And all these different beings, they are all empowered by Krishna to execute their activities, right? Therefore, they are all also part of the universal body of the Lord. And for example, Arjuna's vision of the universal form devouring the soldiers in both armies, it was a vision of how the force of Kala, the universal time, would crush everyone in the near future, right? Because time is an inexorable force that wears out and eventually destroys everything and everyone, right? Everyone in this material world is eventually devoured by time. And that's what Arjuna saw. He saw time literally as a person devouring everyone, right? And this was something that was going to happen in the future. So he was actually seeing the future. And being a devotee, of course, Arjuna immediately connected everything he saw with Krishna, right? He understood that everything that exists is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. However, he couldn't check the feelings that came from such a vision, right? In this way, his natural relationship of friendship with Krishna was replaced by a feeling of fear and veneration. Like, oh, Krishna, I offer you obeisances from all sides, even from behind, and so on, right? So Krishna then showed again his armed form, and then as Narayana, and then finally he showed again his original form with two hands, right? And so the display of the universal form, as well as the display of the four-handed form of Narayana, it serves as a proof of the divinity of Krishna, right? Prabhupada makes this point that this sets the standard for anyone claiming to be an incarnation, right? If someone claims to be an incarnation of God and is not capable of showing, his universal form, just like Krishna showed to Arjuna, then he should be immediately rejected as a fraud, right? 100%. So the universal form described in the Srimad Bhagavatam is thus not exactly the same as the form shown to Arjuna, right? So yogis, they use their minds and intelligence to try to conceive an imaginary form that is composed of the different material manifestations that exist inside the universe. And the level of detail they can conceive will vary according to their intellectual power. But the form, right, remains a product of their imagination, right? Is the imagination of the yogi. But Arjuna, on the other hand, he could directly see, by the mercy of Krishna, everything by these transcendental eyes that were given to him by Krishna, right? So this meditation in the universal form that is described by Sukadeva Goswami is, however, not only useful for mystic yogis, it also has a practical function for us. Because although we are chanting the holy names and meditating in the form of the deity, right, and so on, we may have difficulty in seeing Krishna and meditating on him in other situations, right? When we are not performing these activities. When we are in the temple looking to the deity, okay, very easy. But when we are, working and the boss is shouting at us, it's not so easy to remember Krishna, right? So this meditation on the universal form can help us to develop this continuous meditation on the Lord, to see the Lord everywhere, right? And like it may be difficult for us to directly see Krishna, playing the flute, everywhere, just like pure devotees they do. But still, we can also see Krishna everywhere if we understand that everything is the energy of Krishna and therefore is no different from Krishna. And Prabhupada makes this point that even a drunkard, he can make spiritual advancement if he understands that Krishna is the taste of all liquids and remembers Krishna when he drinks his liquor, his vodka or beer or whatever, right? Like if he remembers, oh, that's the taste of God. And no, then he remembers Krishna. He can advance by that, right? This is going to be the start of his spiritual life. So by seeing everything as part of Krishna's universal body, we can see everything as connected with Krishna and see Krishna everywhere, right? And of course, he himself teaches us this meditation in the Bhagavad Gita, right? 7, 8 to 11. O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and an ability in man. I am the original fragrance of the arts, and I am the heat in fire. I am the life of all that lives, and I am the penances of all ascetics. O son of Prita, know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the powers of all powerful men. I am the strength of the strong, the void of passion and desire. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles. O Lord of the Bharatas. Unquote. Okay, so that's it for today. So now we can have some questions. If anyone has questions, you can ask now. There is nothing in the chat yet, but you can write. So, okay, I will close here the slides. And we can start with questions.
Hare Krishna. I have one question.
Yes, please.
It's interesting that you mentioned that about meditation, that someone can reach the ultimate goal by meditating on Vishnu, on a part of the Vishnu. And why it's not mentioned that you have to meditate on Krishna form, or why Vishnu?
It's just that meditation on Vishnu is more popular because this knowledge about Krishna is actually not so no, it's not so common because it's considered a very confidential knowledge. In other eras, people they don't have knowledge of Krishna at all, practically speaking. Only maybe some very rare persons. They know about Vishnu only. They see Vishnu as a supreme person. This knowledge of Krishna, it is very confidential. Not everyone knows about that. Brahma knows, for example, because Brahma sees Krishna in the before creating the universe. So Brahma knows, Narada knows, Sukadeva Goswami knows, Vyasadeva knows, Lord Shiva knows, but most of the others, great personalities of the universe, they don't know Krishna at all. But and then when Krishna comes, right, to perform his pastimes, then of course this knowledge becomes more common. Then of course everyone can know and hear about it. But before that, it's not so common. It's not so clear in the Vedas at all. That's why it's recommended meditation on Vishnu. And it's also is easier to meditate on Lord Vishnu than to meditate on Krishna because the pastimes of Krishna are very difficult to understand. Imagine, the yogi, very celibate yogi, and he is trying to understand, how God can have, 16,000 wives and millions of girlfriends, and maybe bewildering for him, right? It's easier to meditate on Lord Vishnu, with his wife and so on. So there are many points there, but the main point is that is not Krishna is not easy to understand. Lord Vishnu is easier to understand.
And I heard that not from devotees, but from like other traditions. They say that Krishna is eighth avatar of the Vishnu. I mean, they consider Krishna as avatar of Vishnu, but in our tradition, we say that he's ultimate personality, and all other avatars is just his avatars.
We discussed this right in the beginning, like session 3 or 4, when we studied the third chapter. But like, in general, servants of Lord Vishnu, they tend to see Lord Vishnu as the supreme, of course, and then they tend to think that okay, Krishna is just when Lord Vishnu he goes to arts to perform his lila. Even in Vaikuntha planets, many have this idea. Many of the eternal servants of Lord Vishnu, they have this idea. When in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita is described that when Gopakumara he went to Vaikuntha and he called Gopal, 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 my friend. The servants of Lord Vishnu, they stopped. No, wait. First of all, you don't go to embrace him like this. First, you need to offer prayers and so on and so forth. And second, Gopal, like it's not really a nice name to call him because Gopal is when he goes to art and he does some pastimes there. But here, Lord Narayana is here, so you call him by his real name, and so on. So they have this conception. It's part of their rasa with the Lord, just like Mother Yashoda, she doesn't understand that Krishna is God. In the Vaikunthas, they don't understand that Narayana comes from Krishna because it's part of their rasa, right? But the point is that when we come to the Vedas, what the scriptures say, right, especially what the Bhagavatam says, is that Vishnu comes from Krishna. Krishna is the Swayam Bhagavan. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and he is the origin of all incarnations. In a sense, this is a secondary. This is not a very important point because anyway, everyone, Narayana is Krishna and Krishna is Krishna, right? They are the same person. But if you want to have the correct philosophical understanding, then Krishna is the supreme. And this is proved, in so many quotes of the Bhagavata and other scriptures. But in India specifically, many people, they have this idea because of incorrect commentaries of the scriptures. And that's a very big problem in India because, in India, there are, thousands of years of speculation, and it's difficult for people to find, the real information, in the midst of all this, incorrect assumptions, right? So in a sense, in the West, it's easier to find Krishna because in the West you don't have so many, all this nonsense. So people, they just, okay, what I can find about Krishna? They get a book from Prabhupada, they read it, and Haribo, they understand. But in India, but Swami such and such says that, and Swami such and such say that, and it's harder actually.
When I visited India and I met some devotees of Shiva in a train, and they said that Shiva is the supreme personality of Godhead.
Yeah, like I said in the first class, if you take verses of the scriptures out of context without perfect understanding, you can prove that anyone is God, basically. Surya is God, Shiva is God, there is no God, Brahma is God, the Jiva is God, I'm God, You can prove this using verses if you want. So there are so many things that you can prove using verses out of context. You can prove anything you want. But again, when you really examine the verses appropriately, then you see that that's not the case. Right? In the Tamasic Puranas, Shiva, there are verses that glorify Lord Shiva and like glorify Lord Shiva to the point of saying that he's the Supreme Lord. But this is just to increase the faith of the ones who are following him, who are serving him, right? Because if the Purana says that, oh, actually Lord Shiva is a servant of Krishna, then his servants will lose their faith, right? And then, but they're not qualified to worship Krishna, but they will not worship Lord Shiva also. So what they will do, right? So to increase their faith, then said, okay, Lord Shiva is supreme, no, Surya is supreme, and so on. And then they start their process by worshiping them, and then gradually they are promoted to the worship of Lord Vishnu, and eventually they may come to the worship of Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, anything more? If there is no more, then we can finish and you can go to read the chapter. So today we studied the first chapter of the second canto, right? So this is the homework, right, for this week to start to study this chapter, because there are a lot of intricate things there, a lot of this knowledge about yoga, about meditation, about the universal form, and so on. And then on the second chapter, we will study about meditation Paramatma, right? That is also a very popular process of self-realization, and we will understand, what we can take from this to our, to our practice, right? To what we are doing now. So, okay, so thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. So hope to see you next week.
Thank you
so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.